If it wasn't for Barry, my life would look very, very different if I would still be alive, if I'm totally honest. So I found Barry while I was serving in Syria as a private contractor. My job was to make it safe for the Syrian population to move back home and have a safe life, children to go back to school. We were walking past another building that had been blown up, and there was Barry just sort of sitting there screaming at us, and she was surrounded by her mother and her siblings, and they were all dead. It took us about 3 or 4 days to gain her trust to actually bring her back to camp. But as soon as we brought her back to camp, she become the team and everyone's best friend. She became the camp dog. Everyone loved her. She was fun to play with. She was a good laugh. She was very much a team dog, though. She was my team's dog. She was the camp morale, but she stayed in my room. I trained her, fed her, cleaned up after her. So I come back to the UK for 2 weeks. And in that 2 weeks, the situation in Syria really deteriorated. So I had to immediately reach out to a charity called War Pause. Luckily, we'd already had a little bit of talk here and there. And I was straight away put in touch with Louise, who is she's an animal. Within a couple of hours, she already had a couple of plans of action. But the whole journey for Barry was she was smuggled out of Syria into Iraq in a fruit basket. And then when she got to Iraq, War Pause took ownership of her and really looked after her. And then they sent her to Jordan, spent her quarantine period in Jordan, and then flew to Paris where I picked her up. So really, Barry started helping while I was in Syria. The terrors and the horrors that we were seeing on a daily, hourly basis was unreal. At one point, we were digging through graveyards because ISIS had left IEDs. Like, that was around the time that we found Barry. And I think without Barry, that would have been a whole different experience. At no point was she staying in Syria. Come hell or high water, whether I had to find my own way back to Syria and drive her back here, there was no way she was staying. There was no way she would stand behind it. Even when all else failed and we had some failed attempts to get her out of Syria and we didn't really know what way to turn, there was difficulties. There was times where I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And the guys at War Pause were just as stubborn and pig-headed minded as myself. And they moved heaven and earth to make it happen. So her helping started out in Syria, and it wasn't just me, it was everyone there. Everyone was uplifted by Barry. And then when I come home, the 6 months I was without her, I really struggled trying to figure stuff out. But what kept me going was having Barry there, or having Barry coming. So I knew she was coming. I knew I had to get things set up. I think fear is a big thing for Barry. When she gets scared, she doesn't really know how to react. And very much like a soldier, she kind of turns to the one thing that she knows, and that's kind of being aggressive very quickly. But all in all, she's adjusted extremely well. She's a really well-behaved dog. She's a very smart dog. If I ask her to do something, she has a very own thought process about it, like what's in it for me. But she's funny, she's a big diva. And then unfortunately in December, my dad died. It was brutal, it was horrendous. And Barry really kind of took the role of the confidant. Like, I could sit on the sofa and cry, blubber everywhere and not feel like I'm being judged. Yeah, she's been an incredible help, not just because of what she's done for my mentality after deployment, but what she's continuing to do in life now. I don't think I would have come back to the UK if it wasn't for Barry, if I'm totally honest. With everything that was going on in my life, with PTSD and whatnot, I just didn't see a reason for me to return to the UK. The job I was doing in Syria, to me, was very important. I was helping people, and I think I would have probably stayed doing that for the remainder of my life if it wasn't for Barry. And with that, her anchoring me back to the UK, I'm now engaged. Barry got me and my fiance together through sort of looking after Barry. I recruited a friend to help me out. Yeah, she'd become my best friend, and then we got engaged. So a lot of the guys I served out in Syria with, unfortunately, haven't made it back. Andy being the biggest one I can think of right now. Unfortunately, when I got home, Andy was killed by an IED, which isn't all that uncommon, unfortunately, out there. Before I went to Syria, another friend of ours, H, he was killed by an IED. While we was there, we lost a couple of team members as well. Yeah, if it wasn't for Barry, my life would look very, very different if I would still be alive, if I'm totally honest.